Hi friends, my name is Daddy Steve and this is Random Access, a weekly gaming news segment where we discuss the highlights in the gaming world, upcoming games, and go over a game spotlight. You're gonna like this episode today. Let's jump right into the gaming news. Starting off,
I am winner.
we come back with Riot Games. Last week we discussed Riot potentially doing a walkout due to forced arbitration with a discrimination lawsuit a few of its former female employees had filed against Riot Games last year. Riot Games has since then came out and said that they are going to go ahead and uphold their right to forced arbitration with two of the two of the five former employees filing lawsuits, and that they said they will revise their internal policies on forced arbitration for new and future employees coming with the company. So any existing employees or past employees will still be required to go through forced arbitration regarding any type of discrimination lawsuit, but for any future employees that they would revise that policy. Riot employees were obviously upset about this. They said, you know what, that's not good enough. We're gonna do a walkout. Over 150 employees staged a walkout on Monday, May 6th, and yes, it was, I believe, the first walkout in the gaming industry, and probably not the last walkout that we'll see happen. So it was a huge day in gaming, especially game developer world, because again, this has never happened before. Game developers finally took a stand with one another in solidarity because of these policies that they did not agree with. They're not against Riot Games per se, but they're against the policies that the company has created and upheld, whereas other game developers or publishers around the industry have not enforced those parts of their contracts, and Riot Games is kind of sticking to its guns here with two of the former employees. So good for Riot Game, good for the Riot Game employees for standing up for the rights of the employees that they feel like they're being forced into private conversations with folks instead of getting out there and actually litigating this and giving them a jury, giving them a due process in court, where they're now gonna have to go through behind closed doors through arbitration and not be able to speak about the case at all, or not have any news of the case get out to the general public. So again, Riot is trying to change its culture, but it doesn't look like they're doing a very good job so far, especially with the way they handled this. There must be some pretty, and this is all speculation by the way, there must be some pretty damaging evidence or allegations against Riot Games for them to consider these two employees to have to go through arbitration and not see the light of day of any of this information getting out into the public. So very interesting to see that they do that. That tells you that there's definitely some seriousness to some of those lawsuits. Next up in the news, we have another big breaking event happening. A senator has proposed a bill to ban loot boxes and pay-to-win mechanics in games aimed at kids. This was introduced earlier this week by a senator. It has gained a lot of traction, a lot of news headlines regarding this, especially in the gaming world. And a lot of people have mixed emotions about this. Some people feel like it's not the government's place to get in here and regulate. Others feel like it's a great thing because the publishers continue to get greedier and greedier with these mechanics and with these elements where they're making you do loot boxes. They're doing these pay to win stuff to really force you to really just pull that lever and just gamble away, you know. So it's very interesting to see that the government steps in here, especially as publishers like EA and Activision Blizzard get more like cemented in doing these pay to win transaction or loot boxes. I for one think it is a good thing if they don't overstep their bounds here and only specifically focus on those elements of gaming. You don't want to have an instance where they get their foot in the door with kind of monitoring and legislating and controlling the gaming industry to where they overstep their boundaries and limit gaming in general to where it's like kind of excessive. For example, you can't have too violent games or something like that, or where they change like the rating system to make it more strict and harder for game developers to get games out to the general public, or make it harder to get games in the general public's hands for one reason or another in the future. So I don't want this to be like a way for them to further legislate and restrict the gaming world, but I do want the gaming world or the game industry, especially game devs and game publishers, specifically publishers, to take notice here that they need to get their act together and really think about different ways to monetize and fund the games games that they're providing. A lot of these people are leaning into games of service, and the way they sustain those games of service are through these loot boxes and pay to win mechanics. And it's getting to the point where it's become predatory on the children. Children don't really understand the mechanics behind it, and it's kind of like the predatory advertising in a way, where you don't even know it's happening to because you're a child. So it's very good that they're doing this. I think it's going to have a profound impact on the gaming industry. It definitely will negatively impact the industry at first. There's going to be shockwaves going through the system if this bill actually does pass. It's going to impact the way publishers are able to make money off of games service or free-to-play games. The free-to-play model may end up changing or morphing into something even more dramatic than what it is now. Hopefully this is a sign for the better, not for something worse, or maybe like eliminating a certain sector of games out there. But again, definitely good news in my opinion. This is also based off of Candy Crush. This whole thing started with Candy Crush. In the news that broke, the senator had seen that Candy Crush was giving you more time or more ways to play the game, to advance in the game, if you paid a certain amount of tokens or gems or in-game currency. And so it was based off of mobile games specifically that prompted this bill to be passed. And again, this is only games aimed at children, but many of the games are aimed at children these days, so it's very interesting. Like, I mean, I would say Overwatch is probably aimed at children. I would say Fortnite is definitely aimed at children. So those games definitely will be impacted by this if there are any like pay to win mechanics in loot boxes. I know for sure loot boxes in Overwatch. With Fortnite, I'm not sure if there's really any pay to win mechanics there, but I think they do have like the skin thing and battle pass stuff. So it'll be interesting what they define as a loot box or pay to win mechanic. And again, that's where it gets kind of hairy with the government stepping in, because you got to figure out what their definitions of these things are and make sure that they're in alignment with what it actually is. So we got to be careful there. And even before this bill was proposed, Germany had already been exploring similar options related to mobile gaming pay to win mechanics and loot boxes. So they're pursuing legislation to regulate and ban this practice for mobile gaming specifically. They are targeting the mobile audience and saying this is not right. You shouldn't be doing this to your mobile users. This leads me to believe that a lot of legislators and a lot of government officials are playing a lot of games on their phone, and they're getting pretty upset because it's all pay to win on the phone. I'm like, there's not really, I mean, there are some pay to win mechanics in regular games, like your PC games, your console games, but most of that stuff resides in the mobile world. That's why like traditional gamers are like the ones that really scoff at like mobile games, because a lot of it is pay to win elements. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, maybe these guys are just sitting here on their lunch break or their free time and they're trying to play a mobile game. They're trying to play Candy Crush and they can't progress, and every time they want to progress, they get this thing that says, you know what, you got to come back tomorrow and play, or pay X amount of tokens to continue your game. And they're like, you know what, F this, I have the authority to create to pass bills and create laws. I'm going to do this, that, and that's kind of how this came about. I wonder if that's how it is. And then they tailor it for kids so they can get the bill passed along through the legislation. But it's actually for the adults that are playing these games on their mobile phones, probably. Again, it's all speculation. I'm just joking. But this is definitely not a joke. It's a serious issue. Stay tuned. When we hear more back on this legislation, we'll be sure to update you. Next up, we have a disturbing report for the Star Citizen developer. Apparently, Forbes reported that Star Citizen development has been troubled by mismanaged money in a toxic work environment. And to illustrate that a little bit better, so far since 2011, they have raised $288 million. About 240 plus mil of that has been raised by the community itself. And the game is only in alpha state, and this is since 2011, and they had promised over 100 star systems, and yet one star system has not been completed yet. So a lot of folks are filing grievances against the Star Citizen developers, saying, hey, this is not what I signed up for. We should be further along with this since we pledged so much money into this. What the heck is going on? Couple that with additional folks in the game industry that have worked on the game, indicated that they've been micromanaged into the ground to where it's led them to quit working with the company. And also there are so many checks and balances in place that it was almost impossible to get things approved. An example that they provided was when they were doing male character model designs, like the model design approval process would change multiple times, to where you'd have to go back and continually submit your request to get it approved before it would go into production. And they would have like over 100 different times that you'd have to get this reapproved because of the process changing or the approval thing changing, or they would focus so hard on the very minute details and specifics of things that weren't as important as other broader issues that needed to be addressed. And these types of micromanaging issues led a lot of people to burn out or just altogether say goodbye to the developers. So again, Star Citizen has been a meme so far because of how long it's taken them to release this game, and because of how much money they've raised and how much they have to show for it so far. But to their credit, earlier this week they did release the game in a free-to-play demo, if you will, so you could try the game for free for a few days, I believe. And this was like literally coincided with the Forbes report going out, so I don't know if it's coincidence or timing or what, but that definitely was very interesting that your ability to try the game out and the report that came out was coincided with one another. Additionally, there were people pretty upset when the owner or CEO of the organization had recently bought a multi-million-dollar home in LA last year. Whenever the company is struggling, or not necessarily struggling, but not necessarily doing great with their liquidity of their funds and finances with the organization, the CEO fired back and said, "Hey, this is money from my previous life. I've invested in other companies. This has nothing to do with the Star Citizen development. This is not funds from Star Citizen development. You guys did not crowdfund me buying my home. I already had money before this, so don't think these funds are the same as the funds that we're using to develop the game." So again, he defended himself there, but then it led people to scratch their head a little bit. It's like, well, if you need money, why don't you invest more of your own money? You know, kind of like that in regards. They're kind of like scoffing at like him buying a multi-million-dollar home in LA. So again, take what you will of it. All I can say about Star Citizen is I would have expected them to be a little bit further along than they are. What I have seen of the game, though, in the alpha states that I have seen on Twitch, on their updates, on the Twitter feed, the game has looked really amazing. The environments have looked great. The ships have looked great. The character models look great. The details, the really specific details that employees maybe hated to deal with, are very awesome. Like for example, the heads-up displays or the monitors on your suit, on your ship. Everything looks extremely detailed and immaculate. And honestly, that functions in the game as it would. You literally read those readings. It's everything in that game has a purpose. There's nothing there just for fluff or for show. Like if you're looking at a monitor, those monitors are telling you something important. If you're looking at your biometrics on your suit, those actually have a meaning. They tell you if you're okay or not. So there's like so many different things in the game that are really, really detailed, and you'd have to really be really focused to see these details. But it is, so far the game looks great. It just definitely needs to move further along. And I think part of the issue here with Star Citizen 2, to give them a little bit of credit, to give them some support here, was that they switched their whole entire like engine that they were working on. They went from I forget what engine they were working on before, but it was a complete overhaul of their systems. They changed from a system that wasn't able to support them anymore to the Amazon AWS engine. So they completely did a complete overhaul when they switched over, and that's obviously going to slow you down in your development phase. So again, the changing engine in the middle of developing an MMO is nothing to sneeze at, and so I believe that also led to them being slowed down in their ability to develop the game. Yeah, exactly. And texted it, CryEngine to Amazon Lumberyard, exactly. And so that definitely will slow down your development process. So again, I do want to give them a little bit of credit, because there were some technical changes that they had to overcome and things that they had to like switch over to. That is not something you could just like literally turn a light switch on and say, hey, we're ready to go. There's a lot of heavy lifting on the back end that people obviously aren't going to see as a consumer. But again, since 2011, they've raised a buttload of money. They continue to do fundraising to support and fund the game. I'm hoping that we get at least the Squadron 44 game, I believe. I hope we get that game by the beginning of next year, hopefully. I think that's kind of like what a lot of people were thinking as well. Like first half of next year we get that game, or maybe by the end of this year we get that game. That would be a good indication of how far along they can go and how fast they can build out the game. I would love to see that, and then just maybe a more put together alpha state to where you feel like the world is starting to come together more. So again, that Forbes report was pretty detailed in specifics on employee employee experiences with the organization, definitely check it out. They went into the really extreme detail on how they were micromanaged and how there was mismanagement with projects and stuff like that. So it's a very interesting read. It may not be new to some people that have been following Star Citizen closely, but definitely check it out. Next up, we have Variety reporting that NetherRealm, developers of Mortal Kombat 11, they're also going through an issue with the crunch. And if you're not familiar with the crunch, where it's overworking your employees, expecting them to work absurd hours, working them on the weekends, and getting rid of employees that do not agree with this culture, or at least silencing them. So the way they're dealing with crunch, there were complaints from the employees at NetherRealm. So the way they dealt with it specifically was they held one meeting and they asked employees to fill out a survey. But NetherRealm says they're not done. They're going to take these surveys and they're going to give it to Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is their owner or publisher, so they're going to give this to Warner Brothers, and they're going to make sure that these grievances are heard by Warner Brothers. They're going to show the data with the survey to Warner Brothers and come up with a plan to address the crunch in the future. NetherRealm is no stranger to having criticism to poor, toxic working environments. So again, this is not really a shocker. A lot of people would tell you right away that NetherRealm has not been a very pleasant place to work at. I do want to say the game Mortal Kombat 11 is amazing, and the polish on that game is really amazing. So even though they had to crunch their butts off, at least it came, at the very least, it's still not good. It just doesn't justify the crunch, obviously, but that game looks very, very nice. I do have to say it looks very, very nice, very well polished. Very clean. Everything about that game is amazing. It is the first fighting game that I can actually watch and not get bored watching, as opposed to other fighting games that I've watched that I get bored watching after a few matches. I could literally watch the whole entire Mortal Kombat stories line in that game and not get bored watching. It's a very well put together game. But yeah, hopefully they get their act together. Hopefully Warner Brothers can help them out with the crunch issues and grievances that they've received, because this is becoming a common issue. Every week we're reporting a new developer indicating that they've been overworked by their either developer or publisher. So definitely getting to a point of no return with developers getting fed up with this. Next up, we have EA. Yes, your favorite publisher, EA. They just released their Q4 earnings, and Q4 was a disaster for them. It was expected though. It was a very bad outlook. They were down big time in revenue and income, even with Apex and Anthem releasing, because their Q4 is kind of like the first quarter of your fiscal year, but their financial year Q4 is January, February, March, and that was the time Anthem and Apex release. Those two games alone could not even save their Q4. They lost so much money even in revenue and income there that it was just a terrible Q4 for them. So basically they just threw that away, and they're like, you know what, we're gonna pivot through the year. We have a great outlook for 2020, and they're banking on games as a service, back to our our friendly loot box system that I was telling you about, or pay to win mechanics, possibly Star Wars Battlefront 2, maybe another remix in that, and another game maybe. That's kind of scary. But they're going for games of service here, so it makes me think right away, like, how are they going to mess up that Star Wars game, that RPG Star Wars game? I'm kind of scared about that game, guys. Even though it's a single player game, I'm kind of scared how they're going to monetize that game and like milk you for money, because it's not looking good right now. Not looking good. They're also going to bring Apex Legends to mobile, just like PUBG and Fortnite did. And they are also banking on entering the Chinese market. Those are their three-pronged approach for 2020 being a lucrative year for them. And in addition to EA Access becoming available on the PlayStation 4. So EA Access is their own subscription service that they have. They've had it on Xbox and PC for a while, but it was never on PlayStation. Sony never allowed them to have it on PlayStation because they didn't really feel like there was a value to their player base being having Sony Online, having to pay for Sony Online, and then turn around and pay for EA Access. Well, they've kind of backpedaled a little bit on that and softened up, and now they're allowing EA to charge PlayStation folks to gain access to EA Access. So that will be available in the summer, I believe in July, for your PlayStation owners. Sounds like a lot of fun. It's a $5 subscription, so it's not too significant, but again, nickel and dime in here is a pain, especially as a gamer on a budget. Those $5 do add up very quickly. In regards to bringing the game Apex Legends to China, that's going to be a difficult proposal, because if you are aware of the Chinese rules right now, or what's going on with the Chinese gaming scene right now, there are a lot of games that have to go through an approval process in order to even be released in China. And there's a huge backlog of games waiting to be approved to be released in China, because they basically froze all game approvals going available to China. Another a really popular game that's still waiting to be approved is Fortnite. Fortnite is still being waiting. It has still been waiting to be approved for approval in China. So there are a number of games, and that means Apex is going to have to wait in line to get through the approval process to even make it into China. And again, yeah, if they are able to make it into China, that's a huge lucrative market for them to tap into, and that could definitely turn around their year. But they're banking on that backlog of games to like get cleaned up pretty quickly so they can see those earnings. Honestly, I think they're going to lean extremely heavy into the games of service, and we'll find out more. We'll find out more during E3 most likely, or during their EA Play, which is their little show they do before E3, because they don't really attend E3. So we'll hopefully find out more on what their plans are to milk us for as much money as they can possibly get out of us during or right before E3. So stay tuned. EA is looking to make up all that money they lost in Q4. Although they did post record. Oh, that was Activision Blizzard. But yeah, it's gonna be very, very interesting to see for sure. I'm nervous to purchase any title that has EA on it. Just say that. Next up, we have gaming disorders. Do you guys remember gaming disorders being officially recognized as a health issue, a health concern? Well, the gaming disorder was officially recognized by the WHO, the World Health Organization. It has a classification. It even has a medical billing code for it, so you can actually bill for services related to a gaming disorder. And this is causing some problems in South Korea currently. South Korea has projected that they will lose over $9 billion because of this. This could be cost them in folks getting into the gaming industry to develop games, folks buying games, obviously, and exporting these games to other countries. Then their projected estimates are about $9 billion alone. And as you know, that is no small chunk of change to a country of their size. And as you are aware, South Korea is like Mecca for gaming in general. So this is a huge shockwave. This is a huge scare for the gaming in general, because that will have ripple effects across the world. The only saving grace here is that the WHO is going to discuss this. World Health Organization is going to discuss the gaming disorder classification later this month, because a lot of people oppose it, especially the gaming industry as a whole. They believe it is a symptom of a true disorder, not necessarily a cause or a specific disorder itself. So someone who games or is addicted to gaming generally has other underlying issues that result in them being addicted to a game, more like a way to escape from whatever the real issue is. So for example, myself, I'm sad, I might be depressed. And so what do I do to kind of avoid those feelings, or deal with those feelings, or cope with those feelings? Instead of grabbing a bottle of alcohol or doing like illicit drugs, I play video games. I play video games to deal with my sadness. I play video games to forget about my problems. And again, this is a symptom of my issues, the gaming thing and being addicted to gaming. And maybe I am addicted to gaming, but I think the addiction part of that comes from my other issues that I'm avoiding. And those other issues are the true cause of your disorder that you have, not necessarily the gaming itself. That's how I see it anyways. But again, I don't think that is a really contested viewpoint. And for a lot of people in the gaming industry, I feel like a lot of people feel that gaming is a symptom, not a cause, and that is kind of how they're addressing it with the World Health Organization. So we'll see how it plays out here. They're meeting later this month to discuss it in more detail, to consider if they're going to keep it on, or if they're going to remove it, or if they're going to delay it maybe, while they do more research. But we'll see. Stay tuned, because this could get pretty interesting for sure. And lastly, the Payday publisher is seeking... How can I put this lightly? They're going out of business, and they're seeking funding to avoid a money shortage, or basically going belly up, because they really struck out with the Walking Dead game that they just recently released. So if you guys remember, there was a Walking Dead game that was not a Telltale Walking Dead game. It was a standalone game where you kind of hack and slash through zombies. Well, that game was a big unmitigated disaster, and that has caused the Payday publisher to really be reeling. That's really hard to in regards to funding and keeping their operations afloat. They are looking at the very moment. They said they're going to run out of cash before 12 months. They don't have enough money to last them the next year, so they're looking for funding. There could be potential, obviously this is speculation too, they could potentially be bought out, which is usually what happens to companies like this. And instead of just being funded, usually a publisher will come along and buy them up, or buy up all their assets and rights. And sadly, this publisher has already sold off a lot of rights and publishing access to a lot of their other games that they've had. So again, they're trying to keep themselves afloat. They're selling off certain assets that they can, but they're still having a money shortfall here, partially due to the Walking Dead fiasco, but a lot of it due to just poor management on their end. The additional Paydays that have come out in recent years are not necessarily the greatest hits. They were keeping the company afloat, but when you strike out with a big game like Walking Dead like that, that's definitely going to hit your bottom line. And we'll see what happens in the coming months, but it is not looking good for these guys right now. Stay tuned. All right, and that wraps up our gaming news segment for the week. We're going to roll into the upcoming games. In our upcoming game releases, I've only updated a little bit because there are quite a few games coming out on May 21st. Last we left off was Rage 2 coming out on May 14th, but I'll go back and reverse it because we're not quite yet there. A Plague Tale Innocence is going to be coming out on May 14th. Rage 2 by Bethesda, published by Bethesda, is coming out May 14th, which is already out, like an early release to some folks, so you guys can check that out. Steven Universe is coming out on May 17th to PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. They have Bubsy Paws of Fire, PS4, Switch, and PC on May 19th. And then on May 21st, we have a plethora of games coming out, and most of these are kind of remakes and ports to the Switch, but I'll go over them really quickly. You have Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered, you have Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil the original, and Resident Evil 4 all being ported to Switch on May 21st. And then you have a PSVR game called Everybody's Golf VR coming out on May 21st as well. So there's a number of games coming out on the 21st, and we'll give you more updates next week on the remainder of the games for May. I just want to keep you guys' attention on the upcoming games here so you don't miss out anything. If you have a Switch, you literally can play every game, because I feel like everything is being ported to the Switch. It is the most ported system at this time. I feel like everybody sends their game to Switch. Usually they come out on Xbox and PlayStation, but if it comes out on either or, they're always going to port it to Switch no matter what. It seems like Switch is just getting everything. It may be a downgraded version. You may not get the full fidelity of gameplay, but you're going to get the game. You're still going to get the experience, the story of a game. And it's really interesting to see that. And some of these games, they'll probably be good. They'll probably just fine on Switch because they're older too. Like, these are remake games too, like Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil, and Resident Evil 4. Like, those are older games. Assassin's Creed 3. Like, I feel like the Switch can handle that perfectly fine. Those games are older, and they may actually look better with a lower like quality system in regards to like graphics and power. So stay tuned. May 21st is gonna be a big day for re-releases, if anything. Do we have anything else here? Oh yeah, Plague Tale Innocence. I wanted to go back and touch Plague Tale Innocence. We did a game spotlight on that a couple I think a few episodes ago. Basically, that is a story about plague rats and a sister and brother trying to survive this medieval dark age time while running away from Templars. If you want more details on that, check out the previous episode on Plague Tale Innocence. It definitely looks like a great RPG, great interaction between the brother and sister as you're interacting with one another in different ways, and there are cool effects with the rat horde and the light system. Like, there's really cool gameplay elements there too that you should definitely check out. It's Plague Tale Innocence coming out on May 14th for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And then next up and lastly for our segment, we're going to go over our game spotlight. If you're unfamiliar with what a game spotlight is, let me tell you all about it. What we do on Game Spotlights is we pull a game that I have interest in, because if I'm not interested in it, I don't want I don't want to talk negative about it. I don't want to be bored about the game. I want to be excited for the game. So we look for games that I am interested in, games that may not have the most publicity out there, or games that may be so far off that they don't even have a release date yet, but we're still interested. We still want to get hype around those games. We still want to get people excited, get people exposed to these games. That's what the Game Spotlight's all about. I give you an idea of what the game is about based on my review of whatever information they have available. And yeah, I will be following all these games closely. Every Game Spotlight we do, I will follow very closely until release, and I'll keep you informed on when those games are released and if they're still worth what we thought they were when we originally did the Game Spotlight, because that's important, because games can change over time and can get worse, or they can get more hype. So we'll keep you posted on it. Today's Game Spotlight is called Space Haven. Let's get into it.
That's the Earth, burning down and taking humanity with her. So we asked for a spaceship. They gave us tools and said, build your own. We are a colorful group: cops, doctors, farmers, engineers, people with the skills and grit to take a basic platform and turn her into something that can fly. She doesn't have to look pretty. She just has to keep us alive. Keep the air where it should be. Keep us fed. Give us a place to lay our heads. All those are luxuries nowadays. Friends, though, they are a necessity. None of us can do this alone. It's dark out there. We will make it work. We'll shine a light on it all. And maybe, just maybe, we'll find a new home for humanity.
This game looks freaking dope. And so that is Space Haven. That was the intro to Space Haven here. Space Haven is developed and published by Bug-Byte Ltd. It is going to be available on PC, Mac, and Linux. So PC or PC, Mac, Linux exclusive, no consoles at this time, which I would assume they may port that eventually. It is going to be released. It was supposed to be released early access Q1. It is only available on the Bug-Byte store currently, so they have their own distribution store, or storefront if you will, and it is available on their store specifically. It was originally supposed to be released on Steam in early access in April, but here we are in May and it's still not released yet, so stay tuned. It could be released at any time. I don't have a date for you on when it should be released, but it definitely will be released very shortly, since we're already in Q2 and we've already passed the April window for it to be released. So I'm assuming that it'll be released later this month or even in June, but I bet they're going to release it sooner than later, and it will be an early access title that will eventually be a full release in the future. So that is the state of where this game is currently. So what is this game about? Oh yeah, and the price is to be determined. There is no price on it yet. We don't have a price point on it yet, so stay tuned. But the game is basically about you looking for a new home. Humanity has basically destroyed their home world. Your Earth is no longer inhabitable, and so you're looking to the stars to find a new home. That is the premise of the game here. You will look for a safe haven with the chance of surviving the elements and actually making it and making a new home in this world. So that's in essence what you're trying to do. That's the whole overarching goal of the game, is to create a home, create a new haven, create a new Earth, if you will, in this new future that you have. And what you do is you build a ship, and you can build a base. So you're gonna, and it seems pretty basic, but I'll get into more details as we go here. But that's the basis of the game. You're building a ship, and you're gathering crew, and you're searching the stars for a new home. That is the basic explanation of the game. You have the ultimate choice on whether or not you're going to be a good person or a bad person. Are you going to be someone who is ruthless, or are you going to be someone that is heroic, You decide what type of person or what type of playthrough you're going to do in each of your games, but the struggle for survival is always going to be there regardless of what side you choose or what type of element you choose to be. Are you going to be good, evil, neutral, whatever you want to be, whatever the D&D elements are? You know, you could be into those of any spectrum. You could be good and bad. You could be kind of all over the place, if you will, or depending on the situation. Are you an opportunist or whatever? So that'll be an element that you'll have to keep in mind throughout the game, because there are going to be situations that come up, and you're going to have to determine what is the best approach for you and the character that you're working on. And again, it combines a lot of elements from other games. So storytelling elements of RimWorld. If you're familiar with RimWorld, this game is literally right up your alley. And it also has like the gas system, the tile-based gas system, such similar to Oxygen Not Included. And I've played both RimWorld and Oxygen Not Included, and both of those games are really awesome experiences on their own. And to combine elements from both of those games into this game is just going to be really awesome. And honestly, both of those elements in the game, the story element from RimWorld and how random the stories are and how crazy your characters can be, and adding in the struggle to survive and not poison your own inhabitants in Oxygen Not Included, or keep oxygen for your people, is a very interesting and fun gameplay mechanic that they have. So I'm glad that they included both of those mechanics there, because it'll be fun toying with that as you try to survive even more elements in the space. Next up, they have a big component of this game, and a big draw in this game for many people, including myself, is the ability to create spaceships tile by tile, meaning you're building your spaceship from the ground up. However you want to build it. You can build a traditional sci-fi spacecraft that you see in the movies, or you could build a really asymmetrical, wonky looking spacecraft that doesn't look like you can even fly. You can build whatever your heart desires in this game, and there'll be multiple components that you have to build in order for the ship to be functioning, but these elements will be in the game for you to create. And it's gonna have this like sprite pixel art looking element to it, which I freaking love. I love the pixel art looking elements here. It's right up my alley. So this is a great aesthetic that they're going with with the pixel art here. Additionally, you have to manage the gas conditions. There's going to be no oxygen. There's going to be gaseous air that'll kill your crew. You can be sucked out into space and die from just not being able to breathe. You're gonna have to manage your crew members' needs. So there's gonna be like, obviously, like their hunger, their happiness, their mental state, their entertainment. You got to keep them entertained. All the different elements that you would find in RimWorld or Oxygen Not Included are gonna be included here. So if you didn't mind the micromanagement of your crewmates or your members of your team, you're gonna really like it here. But if you hated that micromanaging of it, then you may not like it here either, though. I for one didn't mind it. I thought it was a good element to add to the game to help me understand why I'm doing what I got to do. Why am I building these facilities, or why am I building this tech, or why am I doing this or that? I was doing it to make my crew happier and to make my crew safer, to make my crew healthier, whatever it may be. There was a purpose to what I was doing because of me having to micromanage all these needs for the crew. So it helps me drive the story along, helps me drive the gameplay elements along by having to manage all these different things. So I for one was really for doing that. I know some people hated the micromanagement, so it's give or take depending on the person. In addition to that, you will be traveling and exploring space. So you're gonna be exploring other ships. You're gonna explore other bases. These bases could be empty. They could be full of space pirates. They could have aliens in them. They could have a number of different things. It seems like it's gonna be randomly generated, just like in RimWorld, where everything's randomly generated. Similar effect here, to where anything can happen, and no playthrough is going to be similar to the previous playthrough because of the randomness of it and the way the system generates things. So it'll be great for replayability, and I'm assuming it's going to be pretty hard too, because you're going to die a lot, which will give you more reason to come back and replay the game over and over again. You're going to also, let me get the next one here. There's going to be also interesting features that'll apply that they've already announced that are going to be in the early access portion of the game. So it's going to have like you're going to be able to be cannibal and eat meat from fallen crew members or enemies that you've killed. You literally become cannibal in space. Hannibal Lecter, anybody? You can kill and butcher aliens for their meat. You can become an alien hunter and either like eat the meat, alien meat, or sell the alien meat on the black market or whatever. It's crazy. Other things is like finding like a person inside like a hypersleep like cryo chamber, if you will. Like when you're exploring like an abandoned spaceship and there's people in the cryo chamber, so you can actually recruit those people for your crew, which is freaking cool as hell. Additionally, you can have a space burial where you kind of like you say your goodbye to crew members that have died, and you like you blast them out into space, and everybody gets to say their goodbyes before they're shipped out into the space. So it's just pretty cool. And then there's other things too, like you can roleplay as a pirate, slave trader, a merchant, or even, like I said, alien hunter. There's so many different ways you can roleplay in this game that it lends itself to really interesting stories. That the possibilities are endless, and the only thing really stopping you is the devs, just like, or basically your imagination, honestly, because you can play it in many different ways, and the game's actually going to support you in that. I wouldn't say your imagination, but it's actually the game supporting you playing the style that you want to play. And the way I look at it is, if you like RimWorld and you like Oxygen Not Included, you mold those games together into like a faster than light FTL type of game where you're traveling in a spaceship and you actually can manage each one of those crew members in a meaningful way and build a base in a spaceship in a meaningful way, and not just receive a spaceship or unlock a spaceship like an FTL. Like, that is freaking awesome. Like, you're building like power generators, you're building shields for your ship, you're building weapons for your ship, you're building like critical elements for your ship, you're building doors, reinforced like armor for your ship or your base, so that way if they try to hit a critical element on your ship, then you can protect it. Like if they're gonna go for your engines, or they're gonna go for your like your radar or whatever systems, your detecting systems to detect other ships, like you're gonna have ship battles where you can shoot each other. Like, there's so many cool elements in this game that are just really awesome, that I can't wait to get in and try and test out, because if they are able to deliver a satisfying like mechanic in regards to like your battles, then this game is going to be a home run. It's going to be like another RimWorld, and RimWorld was a huge success. So if they're able to get down the actual like gameplay mechanics to where they're fun, in addition to all the building and all the random events that can happen, this game will definitely be a big hit amongst a lot of gamers, because I love the FTL like battles with the ships. I thought that was cool. I liked how in RimWorld you could set up like a perimeter and like funnel in the enemies to your base and just beat them up. Like, there are certain really cheese strategies that you can develop in those games that will lend itself well in a space environment, and even more and beyond that. I mean, think about aliens invading your ship and capturing your crew, and you have to go and rescue your crew, or you can let them all die. Like, you can decide what you want to do. That's so cool. But that's where this game gives so much creativity. It's just, there's endless possibilities. And the next thing we have, again, watch aliens capture your crew members and cocoon them to the wall in their lair. Like, you can literally let those people die and get eaten, or you can be like Rambo in space and go rescue and go in there solo dolo and kill all the aliens and rescue them. Like, the choice is yours. Like, there's so many cool things you can do. And lastly, again, Space Haven has taken a lot of inspiration from games that a lot of us have loved, like RimWorld, like Space, like Dwarf Fortress, if you're familiar with Dwarf Fortress, and Oxygen Not Included. These games are like, some of these games are hardcore like Dwarf Fortress, some of them are more challenging but not necessarily hardcore, but they also do ramp up in difficulty. So like RimWorld can be like pretty easy going, or it can be ridiculously over the top and almost impossible to win and beat. So if you like these type of games, if those games are your cup of tea like they are for me, check out Space Haven when it releases, or if you're impatient, check it out on the Bug Byte store. They have it there already. It is bugbyte.fi, because they're a Finnish developer. They're from Finland. /Space Haven. Check out their website, or check them out on Steam. You can get more information on Steam about the game Elements, and you can purchase the game early access on the Bug Byte store on their website. So that is Space Haven. That's our game spotlight for the week. Hope you guys liked it. I am definitely excited for this game to come out, and as soon as it comes out and I'm able to play it, I'll give you guys an update on my experience of the game thus far. But again, thank you. Appreciate you guys stopping by today. As always, if you enjoy the content, please give it a thumbs up. If for any reason you do not like the content and you give it a thumbs down, I don't mind the thumbs down, but please let me know what I can do to make the content better. If I just sound like a bumbling buffoon, or if you don't like how I present the content, or if I am misrepresenting anything, please let me know, because I'm always trying to improve and iterate on the process. So any feedback that you can provide, positive or negative feedback, is always welcome. I don't mind. I'm not looking for praise. I'm just looking for ways to make this show better. So please let me know. Before you do the thumbs down, or when you do the thumbs down, just let me know why you give it a thumbs down or why you give it a thumbs up, because it will help me improve tremendously. Yeah, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. I appreciate all you folks that are subscribing to the channel. It means a lot to me. And I'll talk to you guys next week. Have a good one. Peace.